How are we brewing, people? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, another Wednesday is upon us, which means it's time for another PMQ's Brews at 10 here on my left eye. I'm your host, Lefty. You're all very welcome here tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, let's see who's around. Alright, we've got Davinia, Andy Carter, great to see you also. Chris, welcome back. How you doing tonight? Yeah, a bit chilly out. It's going to get to minus ridiculous in some places, I'm led to believe. Yeah, I'm just about keeping nice and warm myself with a lovely cup of Solidari-Tea. Okay, bit too much cola for Davinia. Right, so yeah, it's the first PMQs of 2025. This will be my initial and first reaction to PMQs. Though I do have a couple of predictions about topics that are going to come up. More about that later. Yeah, I'll be kicking off with PMQs and then a couple of other stories. These wildfires in Los Angeles. Terrible situation that's developing at the moment. Obviously Los Angeles is a long way behind us on the international clock. So after PMQs, excuse me, we'll check out the latest developments in LA. And I had a vid out about that earlier. It's about how that and climate change also links into Trump's annexation plans, Greenland and Canada specifically. So yeah, that guy's got some crazy ideas. Please do check it out. There's no ads on that actually. There's a clip that I used that's copyrighted, so I can't monetize that video. But it's a very important message. Of course. Regular viewers will know I'm very passionate about topics such as climate change. So yeah, Octo, you've had this problem with comments recently. I noticed a couple of times on videos you've mentioned they've been taken down, and I've been skimming through the comments that get held back in case, you know, they might be inappropriate and whatnot. And no, nothing, not a jiffy. So it appears the algorithm, or the YouTube, the great YouTube algorithm gods, just sort of whipped a couple of comments away. But well, it's great to have you in the chat tonight at least. Obviously that's out of my control, out of my hands. Apologies for that, because I know that your comments on videos are normally pretty top class, pretty based. So yeah, I'm disappointed to hear that as well. Sorry about that, Octo. Also, sorry about the problem with the sound on yesterday's live stream. I've made some adjustments and whatnot. If you do check that one out, if you couldn't make it last night, I've trimmed out, I should say, that segment of the show. It was just me talking over a news article about the death of far-right fascist Jean-Marie Le Pen. So yeah, they got you good, Octo. maybe they don't, yeah. We can only speculate what's going on there. But it shouldn't deter you from always speaking the truth, of course. Speaking about speaking the truth, just before we get into PMQs and stuff, I think it was yesterday I saw a clip, and it was Elon Musk. I believe this was on Political Custard. Elon Musk in an interview with Bill Maher, who's the popular US talk show host, and they were basically just, you know, kissing each other's asses the whole way through the thing. It was quite sickening, but at one point it got onto the subject of free speech. That's where it links into what we were just saying. And Musk essentially said he has two main principles. Principle number one: nobody should be allowed to criticise America or the American system at all. And secondly, he doesn't believe that there should be any restrictions to free speech. Yeah, go figure. Go figure. No wonder I've had to create a separate segment just for things that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have said. Yes, Andy, great to see you as well. You're right there about Bill Maher, he's a mega boomer. Mega boomer. Well, over here in the UK, they're the sort of people who do things like complain that we don't have national service, even though they're from the generation that never had to do national service, that sort of thing. The NIMBYs. And speaking of Trump, a little bit more about him later on. France and Germany have reacted to his plans, the almost Bond villain-esque plans he's got to take Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal. What next? China. Maybe. Will I retire the segment if they break up, if the bromance comes to a crashing conclusion? Well, I dare say I might have to split it into two segments, but whilst they're having this little bromance. Yeah, it will continue as so. Just as a reminder, Musk and Trump's batshit crazy corner. Plenty more of that coming to a screen near you soon here on My Left Eye. Quality content, quality features, and speaking of which, there is another new feature coming up this evening for the first PMQs of 2025. Quality streaming, I'm sure you'll agree, people. If I say it enough times, it'll hopefully run off as a little tagline for the Brews at 10 itself. Quality streaming. Yes, also later I've got a very interesting protest around Gaza, around Palestine, that I saw on social media earlier. And speaking of social media, please do give us a follow on the platforms that we're on. If you're on Twitter, at MyLeftEyeUK, and that's the same for Blue Sky and Mastodon. Kate, how you doing? Great to see you. Yeah, we were just chatting in the comments on the aforementioned video, actually. Jim Speak, a warm welcome to you too in the chats. Kicking things off in a moment. I do have a comedy clip lined up as well, of course. But yeah, more about that protest I just mentioned earlier. It's kind of like Just Stop Oil or XR on, I don't know, insert your own cultural reference of choice. It was like JSO on crack, or whatever. And of course, before the comedy clip, I need a customary massive thank you to all the members on the channel. If you'll excuse me a moment, I'll just have to take the chat off to make room.
It seems that the UK is under attack from foreign interests.
Yes, it's brilliant, isn't it? As long as we're not in charge when it happens. And thankfully we have the media to help us with these attacks on the government. Although we don't really see these as attacks since we agree with them entirely.
These, up until about last week, would be considered treasonous opinions.
Foreign interference is wrong if it's the wrong type of foreign. But these are Americans. When have Americans ever made poor decisions? Certainly not recently. And look, it's not really interference. He's just asking questions of countries he's interested in, like the UK, Germany.
Russia?
Not Russia, no. Not China either, no. But he's not afraid to go after the big powers. Powers like Denmark and Panama and Canada. He won't let them off the hook.
He sounds like a bully.
And what's the best way to deal with a bully? By agreeing with them and joining them. And look, if that means I hate my country, then until such a position becomes personally damaging, I'm absolutely fine with it.
Yeah, true. Wow, great stuff in the chat, people. Andy Carter, Chris, and Morbius, thanks a lot for those gifted memberships. Solidari-Tea. Hope you enjoyed that clip from Exploding Heads. Do give them a follow. I wonder if that's going to come up in PMQs today. Trump's announcement yesterday, are we going to stand up to him? Probably not. You know, where they lead, we generally follow, unfortunately, on the international stage. So yeah, Putin goes into Ukraine. Oh, Putin's the worst thing on the planet. Israel go further into Palestine. No one blinks an eye. Trump goes on TV. We're going to invade Greenland and Canada and take over the Panama Canal. And, you know, they paid very well for the silence, aren't they? And Jim, welcome. Welcome to the membership. Awesome. Great to have you on board. Do enjoy the perks. Thanks a lot for that, people. Great stuff. Yeah, that does really help out. A couple of the most recent live streams are still under review. They've been demonetized, as I said. The last video I had out as well isn't eligible for monetization because of copyright reasons. There's no copyright strikes or anything, don't worry. It's just that the copyright owner does allow the content to be used, but you do have to duly give credit where it's due, and any revenues would go towards them. So that's the way it is. Green names assemble. Yeah, indeed. Are the Greens going to get a question in during this session? Let's see. No spoilers, please, as well. If you've already seen PMQs or parts of it, I do like to give my initial reaction, as always. G-force? Which G-force are we talking about here? Are we talking about that in the physics sense? Divinia says it might be an old Japanese cartoon. Not sure I know about that one. Well, anyway, let's get going. Let's get straight into PMQs. Over to the screen we go. There we go. Yeah, that's a pretty decent blend with the chats. I'm happy with that. Had a few problems with that on last night's stream. Just done a bit of tinkering. I'll always find the solutions. Don't you worry, people. Okay, off we go.
Right. Let us move to questions to the Prime Minister. Neil Coyle.
Number one, please, Mr. Speaker.
Let's not have any buffering there. One sec. Just turn the quality slightly
Prime
down.
Minister.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I wish...
Getting out of the buffering. Right. That'll do.
all members of this House a Happy New Year.
Get bent, Keith.
And Mr. Speaker, our thoughts, of course, are with those affected by the recent flooding. And we thank the responders who are working hard to keep communities safe. Mr. Speaker, this week we published our elective reform plan to rebuild our energy.
Right, I might just have to quickly shift over to a different source. One sec, and then yeah, I'll get onto the game. And there's an update, a new feature to the game. So I was just checking the stream as we're going through the opening, you know, the usual stuff at the beginning of PMQs. Right. Just one quick moment. I'm going to shift over to a different source. There was a bit of buffering in there. Don't worry though, we have other means, we have other ways. Welcome to the chat, Le Gala de Ville. I like the name. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just about to get started with PMQs. There was a bit of buffering there. Just changing my source. That's S-O-U-R-C-E, by the way, not switching from one condiment to another. Right, that's it. I'll just get this queued up. Yeah, and while I do that, I'll tell you about the game. Now, we normally do the 22 billion black hole versus Deliver. That is to say, a competition as to which will be mentioned the most during PMQs by any party. Given what's happened in the news, though, this week, I've changed it around slightly. So we're still going to have Postman Twat. There he is. In fact, I'll put the larger picture up. So anytime we hear the word deliver, you'll see Postman Twat there. It bears somewhat of a resemblance to Keith, you do have to say. So we keep count of that. Also, a new change. We're going to get rid of the 22 billion black hole just because of what's happened in the news, as I said, this week. And every time they mention the grooming gangs, you're going to see... You'll see this twat. There he is. Haha, obviously. Currently incarcerated for people trafficking. So that's the way it works. And just get the scores up. 0-0. So it's a fresh competition. I don't think Postman Twat has failed to fend off any challenge thus far, but I think he might have his work cut out for him on this week's PMQs. Right, I'll just get through the ad on this page and we'll get cracking. Thanks for your patience, people. Yeah.
We increased R&D spending to the highest of any government in this country.
is a crucial step to delivering that promise, to protecting children, and without the delay of an unnecessary
abused at the hands of men who treated them as things to be used and disposed of, destroying many lives forever. The Prime Minister has mentioned previous inquiries. He is right. There has.
I'm delighted to welcome in the gallery the Speaker of the Lok Sabha of India. Right, let us move to questions to the Prime Minister. Neil Coyle.
Number one, please, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I wish all members of this House a Happy New Year. And Mr. Speaker, our thoughts, of course, are with those affected by the recent flooding, and we thank the responders who are working hard to keep communities safe. Mr. Speaker, this week we published our elective reform plan to rebuild our NHS and end the Tory backlog. We will deliver where the previous government failed.
And in with a bang, it's
empowering
deliver.
patients, boosting productivity, more care in the community,
1-0.
and incentivising reform. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings
It's an early
later
goal.
today.
Neil Coyle.
On behalf of everyone in Southwark, and I hope the whole House, can I offer the Prime Minister condolences on the loss of his brother over Christmas? And wish everyone a Happy New Year. Last July, the public overwhelmingly backed Labour's manifesto commitment to halving violence against women and girls. Can the Prime Minister set out how today's vote on the Children's Wellbeing Bill is a crucial step to delivering that promise, to protecting children, and without the
2-0.
delay of an unnecessary, further, lengthy inquiry?
Can I thank him for his remarks about my brother and the
That's a
other
roaring start.
colleagues who've sent me remarks. Mr. Speaker, he raises a very important issue. Violence against women and girls, abuse, child sexual exploitation are sickening. Many victims have been let down for a very long time by warped ideas about community relations and the protection of institutions. Mr. Speaker, he raises the question of inquiries. There have been a number of inquiries, both national and local, including one covering Oldham. And reasonable people can agree or disagree on whether a further inquiry is necessary. This morning I met some of the victims and survivors of this scandal, and they were clear with me that they want action now, not the delay of a further inquiry. The J inquiry, the last national inquiry, was 7 years, which would take us with a further inquiry to 2031. I think action is what's required. But whatever your view, whatever anyone's view on whether a further inquiry is needed,
Quite right
what I
there in
find
the chat,
shocking
Oxo.
is that anyone in this House would vote down the Children's Wellbeing Bill this afternoon, which is vital protections for the most vulnerable in our society. And I urge the Leader of the Opposition to withdraw her wrecking amendment.
Leader of the Opposition, can he bear the
Mr. Speaker, the whole House has heard that the Prime Minister lost his brother during the Christmas period. So can I offer him, on behalf of my party, our sincerest condolences? The new year has started with a focus on the decades-long rape gang scandal. Across the country, thousands of girls were tortured and sexually abused at the hands of men who
Close
treated
enough.
them
I'll
as things
give
to
that
be
one.
used and disposed of, destroying many lives forever. The Prime Minister has mentioned previous inquiries. He is right. There has been an inquiry into child sexual abuse, but it wasn't about the rape gang scandal.
Oh, that's
In its
another, I guess.
468
Well, it's gotta be if the
pages,
first one
it
was.
mentioned Rotherham just
2-2.
once. Is the Prime Minister confident that we know the full extent of rape gang activity?
Great. What a... She's done a hat-trick
Can I first
in
thank
a
her for
single
her
visit
condolences, and can I thank her for reaching out
retake
over
the lead.
Christmas period when I
Incredible.
lost my brother. I really did appreciate that. And I
Yeah, I'll
appreciate
accept that. It
today.
doesn't have to be
Mr. Speaker, on
grooming
the question of a
guns
further inquiry,
specific.
there have
Same way
been
we
a
have
number of inquiries.
delivery.
Some of them localised, including the Mayor of Manchester's inquiry recently.
Account for variables.
And of course, a national inquiry Professor Jay carried out took 7 years, had 20 recommendations, none of which actually were implemented by the party opposite when they were in government. Now,
Just pause 1 sec.
this is a really serious.
I want to check with you guys. What do you say? I might move the scores and the icons over to the left-hand side under the Livestream logo, just so you can see more of the chat. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Let me know in the chat, or you okay with where they are? It's just you can only see a few messages on screen with the scoreboard up. I don't mind moving it. Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Thank you, good people. Let's carry on. 3-2 already. This could be a high-scoring one. Well, it already is.
Issue. We must focus, obviously, on the victims and survivors. There's no fixed view on the victims and survivors about a further national inquiry. There are mixed views. But there is a view, and I share this view, that what is needed now is action on what we already know. We already know, myself from personal knowledge when I was Chief Prosecutor, that warped ideas, myths and stereotypes about victims are at the heart of this. We've known that for a decade. The J report called for mandatory reporting. I called for it 11 years ago. What we need now is action. What can't be tolerated is the idea that this afternoon members opposite will vote down a bill which protects children, include Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me just. One of the provisions in the bill is to protect children vulnerable today who are out of school to prevent abusers ever taking those children out of school. I implore members opposite to defy the misleading leadership of the Leader of the Opposition and vote for a really important bill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked that the Prime Minister would say that actions were not taken. He knows full well that we accepted 18. He knows full well that we accepted 18 of the 20 recommendations in the J inquiry and went further, launching a gangs task force that found 550 more perpetrators. That shows that there is still work to be done. In Rotherham alone, there have been over 1,400 victims. Across Oldham, Bradford, Bristol, Rochdale, and dozens more towns, there have been thousands more victims, but no one has joined the dots. No one has...
Well, I've joined the dots.
The total picture,
and it's basically
it is almost certainly
racism disguised as patriotism coming from the far right.
One victim from Telford, and I know he says that victims have different views. We have different views across this house.
PMQs,
but one victim from Telford says she wants a national inquiry because
I want to remind you, overall, in terms of cases, you're looking at 89% of these are carried out by white British men, which is higher than the actual population, around 4-5% higher than the percentage of the white British population. And also on the flip side, migrants are in the minority of cases, an even smaller minority than they are a proportion of our society. So it's just patent racism disguised as patriotism, and these two dancing to Elon Musk's tune now, in batting this across the House of Commons at each other and in the media, and trying to outflank each other to the right on the issue of immigration. That's what neoliberalism has led to, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable.
It will hold people accountable in a way that previous inquiries have not. It is very possible to have actions, take on more, and still have a national inquiry. So why won't he listen to victims and launch a national inquiry which would have the power to summon witnesses and make them give evidence under oath?
There were failings when
they accepted the recommendations. They didn't act on them. One of the central
Head
recommendations
of
was
Department of Public
mandatory
Prosecutions.
reporting, and it still hasn't been enacted. I called for this 11 years ago. They've been tweeting and talking. We've been acting. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has been an MP, I think, for 8 years. Her party have been in government for 7.5 of those 8 years. She was the Children's Minister. She was the Women's and Equalities Minister. I can't remember her, I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling for a national inquiry. It's only in recent days she's jumped on.
You had Jenrick on the radio yesterday trying to say that he raised this in the House, but Nick Robinson was saying there's no record of it. There's this sort of database where they can see what, everything, every word gets written down and recorded. and that they have access to that. And no, he was just making it up.
Until today.
Not backing Keith up by any means.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is being very specific because I have raised this issue. I've raised it in speeches. I've raised it publicly. He knows that as a minister...
Yes, shout out to Manchester in the chats.
I would not have been speaking on this specific issue. I was not a Home Office minister. But Mr. Speaker, I will remind him about other victims who came to me who I did help. The victims of the Tavistock scandal who came to me as a minister. I didn't send them away like his safeguarding minister. I made sure, as his Labour Party were calling me transphobic, that we launched the CAS review, which even his health secretary has accepted. So we do right by victims, Mr. Speaker. The reason why
Tory party are transphobic
is important is because this issue is systemic. It has been involving local and national officials, the police, prosecutors and politicians. He talks about some of the local inquiries, but these interlinked issues cannot be covered by local inquiries alone. In fact, the leaders of the Manchester inquiry resigned because they couldn't get evidence, they couldn't summon witnesses, and not a single person in a position of authority has been held to account.
Well, the people on the streets of Manchester and elsewhere in the UK are worried about how they're paying the bills and all the other things I've mentioned. This isn't as high on the agenda as they're making it out to be. Obviously, any case of this happening is absolutely appalling and it needs to be stamped out. But the fact that they're focusing on this minority element, as I said, just feeds further into this far-right lie and trope that's being bounded around by Farage, Tice and Elon bastard Musk.
Doesn't help one bit. Mr. Speaker, she raised a question of a victim with me, and quite right to, and I accept that victims and survivors are in different places on this. Those that I've spoken to are worried about the delay of a further inquiry. The last inquiry took 7 years. That would take us to 2031. Now, these inquiries, amongst the issues that's been raised with me, and if she's been speaking to victims, they'll have raised this with her, is that it's very hard for victims and survivors to come forward to explain what's happened to them. They do not want to be rushed through this process, which is why the last one took 7 years. It's not sensible to suggest that this can be done in a hurry on the cheap and comprehensively. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, that would take us to, let's say, 2030, 2031. The victims that I've spoken to want action today. I agree with them on that. But what I don't understand, I genuinely don't understand, is why anybody today would vote against the children well-being.
Super tiny. Yeah, the cops could have a part in dealing with it, of course, if they hadn't been stripped to the bone like every other public service under the Tories. Not making excuses for Keir Starmer, because likewise he's not going to do anything to solve the problem with policing any more than he is anything else that he touches. It's like the opposite of the Midas touch. Everything he lays his hands on turns to complete and utter poo.
We don't need to repeat the work that has already been done. Let's look at new areas. Former Labour MP Anne Cryer said that there were councillors and MPs all over the country who knew what was going on, but were terrified of being labelled racist. A national inquiry would ask if there was a racial or cultural motivation to some of these crimes where white girls were seen, as Jack Straw said, as easy meat. The member for Rotherham was sacked from Labour's front bench for speaking out about race.
Jack Straw, so that's a while ago. He was the old MP for Blackburn and Defence Minister at one point, of course, during the Iraq War under Blair.
Well, I'm very happy to call out anybody who hasn't acted properly in these cases. I've done it many, many times before, and it doesn't matter to me which political party they're in. I'll call them out and I will condemn them. Mr. Speaker, when I was Chief Prosecutor, I took measures
I do need a better internet connection, Davini, you're quite right. I need a bit of an upgrade on gear as well.
Prosecutions for an Asian gang was in Rochdale.
One thing at a time. I'm getting there.
Put a number of Asian men in the dock. They wanted the green light for the first of these cases to take place. I gave that green light, but on one condition, because it came to my attention that one of the men that was going into the dock had previously been arrested but not charged. And I said, you can bring the first of these mass prosecutions, but only if you look back at the file where we weren't charged and tell me what went wrong with a report so that I can start to put it right. And that's what started the reforms I brought about. So that's the approach I took in practice, whilst others were tweeting and talking. It's the approach I would take now in any case where there's wrongdoing here. But what we've got to do now, Professor
change the score for a while.
We have had a number of strong findings. There are 20 on the table from Professor J. We've got to get on with action. Don't block it this afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, we need to focus on what this is really about. This is not about...
I'll change the bloody record now. This is
not about the Prime
back and
Minister's
forth.
work in the CPS. And I would say very respectfully to the Prime Minister, it's not about you. It is about the victims. Be a leader, not a lawyer. We know
I'm sure the
that
victims
people
themselves
were
will be
scared
equally
to tell
appalled
the truth
by
because
the inaction
they
of
thought they would be
both
called
of you.
racist. If we want to stop this from ever happening again, we cannot be afraid. The Labour Party has adopted the APPG definition of Islamophobia. That same APPG report said talking about sex groomers was an example of Islamophobia. This is exactly why people are scared to tell the truth. And the lack of clarity means that innocent British Muslims are smeared by association. That is not fair, and only a national inquiry...
Kate, thank you very much for the gifted membership. Yeah, that'll go towards the gear upgrade. Get some new kits. Thanks a lot for that. Solidarity.
Rule out introducing it in government.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will call out any aspect that has prevented...
Yeah, I am on a... I do the streams on a laptop at the moment, just for the record. Revelation.
Or child sexual exploitation, as I have been doing now for the best part of 15 years.
But groomers.
You know, yes, some people will say there should be a further inquiry, but that does...
It's far too...
I accept that, but that means all the victims and survivors who are going to give evidence need to be in a position to do so. Not all of them are. I've been speaking to them. There are some that do think they are. It will take time. All of the institutions will
That's
have
the
to
thing with this game, it's like waiting for a bus.
This will delay things till 2031 also. But we all, Mr. Speaker, we already know what the major flaws are. And my argument is we should get on with that action. And that's why we're bringing forward the bill this afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has effectively told us that he's not able to do two things at the same time. This issue of a delay is a weak excuse, and I would say to him that by refusing this inquiry, he is enabling those people who wish to smear all British Muslims based on the actions of a small minority. He is talking about distraction tactics. Let us have the truth. The Prime Minister cannot tell the House the full scale of the scandal. He doesn't want questions asked of Labour politicians who may be complicit. He won't listen to the victims. He won't listen.
Yeah, I might have a chat with you about that. Thanks a lot for the offer there.
He is making this all about a bill this afternoon. Later today, he will tell Labour MPs.
Yeah, let's have a chat about that.
Rochdale, Bristol,
not on the stream though.
Aylesbury, Oldham, Bradford, Peterborough, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Ramsgate, tell all of these people to vote against a national inquiry into the gangs which have systematically gang raped children in their constituencies.
It's all shock and drama and zero compassion, really, isn't it?
History, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry? This is a very, very important issue that does matter to the country. It matters to all our constituents. I want to make sure they can hear what's being said by the Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this is one of the worst scandals in recent British history. But how are
handbags at 20 paces there from Lindsay Hoyle?
That obeying his whip is more important than doing the right thing.
She's right to say it's one of the worst scandals. It's terrible.
Yeah, thanks again for that, Octo. Yeah, drop me an email or something. mylefteyuk@gmail.com.
Having spent a lot of time on social media over Christmas, not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national.
And it's the
inquiry.
hyper-panto part of PMQs now. It's the, no, you were worse. No,
20
you were worse.
recommendations. Not a single one.
Oh, no, he
implemented.
didn't.
Not a single one implemented. And she said you can do two things at once. You can't kill the bill this afternoon, wreck that bill, and protect children. There was a, Mr. Speaker, there was a dreadful case of Sarah Sharif that everybody will remember. This was the girl taken out of school and abused by an abuser. The bill this afternoon fixes that gap. And I know, I'm looking across, I know there are honourable members on the benches opposite who know very well that what's in this bill is necessary, that it's the right thing to do, and that would want to vote for this bill. I urge them to think twice about following this short-sighted, misguided, bandwagon-jumping approach of the non-leadership of the Leader of the Opposition.
There are still time for planted questions, of course. They usually contain a deliver or two.
Speaker, my constituent, Anne-Marie, and countless other armed forces families across Aldershot and Farnborough are living in shabby military accommodation that simply isn't good enough
Did I miss
after
one?
14 years of Conservative neglect. So can I welcome the Ministry of Defence plan to buy back thousands of homes in my district?
It's got to be
And will the
like
Prime
gangs
Minister
either
set
accepts
out how sorting out this bad deal
or
left
the R-word
behind by a
gangs.
past Tory government will make life better for Anne-Marie and others like her living in the home of the British Army?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for her question? And we all owe extraordinary debt of thanks to those who serve. Mr. Speaker, by reacquiring over 36,000 service family homes, including 1,700 in my honourable friend's constituency, we can rapidly transform substandard accommodation. The deal that we've done also saves the taxpayer around £230 million per year in rent, and of course it follows the largest pay rise for the armed forces in over 20 years. There is of course still work to do, but this is a major step forward.
We now come to the Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Red Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Happy New Year to you. And can I join others by offering my personal condolences to the Prime Minister on the loss of his brother? And can I take this opportunity to express my sadness at the passing of...
Not this week, Doc. No, I didn't want to have like
Baroness,
three contenders. We'll only have two at a time, but
Mr. Speaker,
22 billion black hole might be returning
is urgent.
in the heavyweight championships.
Disabled who are not getting the care they need.
Nice to see you, by the way, Doc.
Family carers who are making huge sacrifices to fill the gap. For the NHS, where over 12,000 people are stuck in hospital beds because they can't get out of hospitals, the care's not there for them. The Prime Minister is right.
Forget about that, Ed. Where's this going to sell us up the river?
But as Sir Andrew Dillot has said today, that needn't take 3 years. So will the Prime Minister please speed up this work so 2025 is the year we finally rise to the challenge of fixing care?
Prime Minister.
Thank him for raising this important issue and thank him for his...
They'll be fixing, not fixing care, fixing the system so that it siphons, filters, funnels, that's the word I'm looking for, more money into private hands from the NHS, from patients. That's going to be the difference.
It's important I point out the immediate action that we've taken, the £3.7 billion of additional funding in the budget for social care.
3.7 billion is a pitiful
to allow
amount.
7,800 more disabled and elderly people to live more
in a £2 trillion economy,
and of course the
scale
of
the care crisis at the moment.
And the way in which we've set this up is in stages so that we can act and improve as we go along, but making sure
throw that at Ukraine without a moment's thought.
That may be proposed in the review, and I do invite him and members across the House to work with us.
Any problems at your end with the audio,
what we put in place endures beyond just a few years. Thank you.
Red David.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid if the government doesn't bring in these long-term social care reforms this year, their NHS reforms, this Parliament will fail. So I hope he will revisit the timetable. But moving on, Mr. Speaker, while the honourable member for Clacton may miss out on his big allowance from Elon Musk, the spectre of the richest man in the world trying to buy a British political party should give us all pause for thought.
Where are we?
And after years of the Conservatives taking millions of pounds of Russian money, will the Prime Minister now work with us to bring in long overdue reforms of party funding so that power in this country lies with the voters and not wealthy overseas oligarchs.
I think we all had a smile on Sunday when the honourable member said how cool it was to have the support of Musk, only for Musk to say he should be removed. Just a few hours later, that's the rough and tough of politics. And of course, we're looking at...
Well, Keith, why don't you rush across the floor of the House like you did towards the end of last year and give him a big handshake and a hug, leap out of your seat, practically bound over to him and greet him with a smile and a pat on the back. And now you are an absolute hypocrite, Keith. And if anything, you're more likely to pander to his low level of politics than you are to commit to proper socialist policies. Sellout.
Question of funding more generally.
Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the efforts this Labour government has made to reset our relationship with the European Union and to seek to remove unnecessary trade barriers. The trading links between the UK and mainland Europe are of particular importance to my constituency of Ashford. So would the Prime Minister support my efforts and those of other Kent colleagues to restore international train service to Ashford International Station that will help economic growth in my constituency, Kent, and wider South East?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for raising this question. Businesses in his constituents have been badly let down by the deal of the last government, and we, of course, are resetting and strengthening that relationship on the economy, on energy, on security to deliver the growth that we need. I know this is an issue of considerable frustration to his constituents. The decision in question, Mr. Speaker, is ultimately for Eurostar,
in this game.
But we are keen to see international services reinstated to Ashford as soon as possible, and I would be happy for the Rail Minister to update him on the latest discussions.
Stephen Flynn.
Stephen Flynn, here we
Can
go.
I begin by doing something unusual, which is to commend the Prime Minister on his earlier answers to the Leader of the Opposition and, of course, to pass on my party's condolences to him for the loss of his brother. Outside of this place, temperatures continue to plummet, energy bills continue to rise, and the winter fuel allowance has been unacceptably taken away from so many vulnerable pensioners. Now, the Prime Minister intimated prior to Christmas that he had no regrets about any of the decisions that he has taken in office.
Nice one, Octo. He didn't have any honourable friends. No, he's got plenty of dishonourable ones, that's for sure.
Does he understand that the public do?
Prime Minister.
I thank him for his condolences. We took some tough decisions. They led to a budget which delivered the largest settlement since devolution began to Scotland. If he thinks we should now reverse that,
5-4.
Then he should say so. What it's done is allowed it's given the money, so now the SNP have the money,
knows when he's beaten.
They have the power, and no more excuses for the non-delivery that we see in Scotland. If he wants me to reverse that, he should say so.
Sam Rushworth.
Mr. Speaker. Feeling safe in your own community is among the most basic of human needs, but after 14 years of Tory cuts to Durham's front
I genuinely had to stop for a second there. I thought he said Jonathan Ashworth, and I was like, what the fuck? That's Simon Ashworth.
Are victims of violence, theft and antisocial behaviour, and these crimes too often go unpunished. Now, I know the Prime Minister's had a lifelong commitment to protecting victims, so what assurances can the Prime Minister give my constituents that our new government will be tough on crime and on the causes of crime?
Prime Minister.
Amongst all that, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, he's right to raise this important issue, and I have to say, when he said there were cuts to polices and somebody said
anyone's game
boring,
at the moment.
I think that somebody opposite just did boring. That tells you everything you need to know about the last 14 years. He's right. We need to crack down on those committing vile acts in our communities, and that's why our plan for change puts 13,000 extra police and PCSO officers into neighbourhood policing, 3.5% real terms increase, and of course tough new respect orders. Where they lost control, we'll take back control and deliver safe and secure communities.
And Postman Swat takes the lead.
Thank you, Mr.
Incredible
Speaker.
scenes, incredible
My
scenes.
constituent Dipak first opened the doors to his pharmacy
Here in the House of Commons,
1991,
6-5.
and he's been serving the Chelmsford community ever since, greeting
You were a
many of his
most worthy
patients by name.
adversary,
But
Andrew
Dipak's
Tate.
business is struggling. His NHS contract no longer covers
Postman
the
Swat
cost
never
of the
knows when
drugs
he's
he has
beaten.
to dispense. For example, he's sometimes been forced to pay over 100 times more for a particular mental health drug than his contract provides. Dipak is dipping into his life savings to keep his pharmacy afloat, and I'm sure that many other pharmacists across the country are doing the same. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that no pharmacist should be forced to use their own money to keep their pharmacy viable?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising this really important and challenging case? Community pharmacists like Dipak play a vital role in our health service. And as she knows, the Department of Health and Social Care sets drug tariff prices and regularly assesses what pharmacies are reimbursed to ensure overall they're paid fairly. If she would prepare to share the details further with me, I will look and have a review by the team of the particular case that she's raised with me. Thank you.
Mark Seward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year, I was honoured to accept an invitation from the European Jewish Association to go to Krakow and discuss the role of Holocaust education in tackling the rising tide of anti-Semitism across Europe. We also visited Auschwitz and Auschwitz-Birkenau, where we laid wreaths and paid tributes to the many victims of the Holocaust. Given that this month marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of those evil places, will the Prime Minister set out what this government is doing on Holocaust education to ensure that never again means never again?
The absolute gall. The absolute gall. Look at what Labour are backing up. Look at what the UK are contributing to.
With Jewish community leaders in
How dare they dishonour the memory of all of those victims
and that includes allocating
by
£54
siding
million
with the same
for the Community Security
evil
Trust
that
to
exists
continue
here
their vital
in the
work,
2020s.
Committing to building a new Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre and providing at least £2.2 million to continue the funding lessons from Auschwitz. And I look forward to working with others on those important proposals.
Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Businesses like Hicks in Harpenden, charities like the Hospice of St Francis in Berkhamsted, health and social care providers like the Elms Medical Practice in Harpenden, a GP, are amongst those up and down this country who are warning the government about the negative impact of the proposed changes to national insurance contributions. When will the Prime Minister heed those warnings and, at the very least, look at exemptions for health and social care providers like they have for the NHS?
Prime Minister.
Thank you for raising this. Look, we had to deliver a budget to wipe the slate clean and to deliver the stable basis for our economy and at the same time repair our public services. That's why we invested £25.6 billion over 2 years in the NHS. Including additional funding for GPs and for hospices. And we are taking measures to ensure that funding is there to support our vital services.
Mr. Speaker, every week I visit constituents in my Hackney South and Shoreditch constituency living in the most appalling, overcrowded social housing, some with triple bunk beds in the bedroom and the parents on a sofa bed in the living room.
So
the nearest available property to buy would be £500,000 and it's out of the reach for these hard-working families. I really welcome our government's commitment to 1.5 million new homes. Will the Prime Minister agree that we need clear targets for the number of social housing units so that families in Hackney can live in dignity?
Prime Minister. I'm grateful to her for raising this and she describes an appalling situation when it comes to housing, and one will be familiar to a number of MPs on both sides of the House.
Solving the housing crisis just by building homes that go to private developments.
Need across the country. She's right, and the budget announced £500 million into the affordable homes programme, which is hugely important.
In Manchester, though, Andy Burnham's trying to set up a scheme whereby the council can have a budget to acquire property to turn it into social housing. That's far better as a tactic. That's the way that we need to be going, really. I don't agree with everything that Andy Burnham says, but I think comparatively he is one of the better regional mayors, and we're quite lucky to have him here in Manchester.
Whilst local families are being evicted from their homes to make way for yet more holiday homes, as the housing crisis deepens and worsens, the 6 MPs in Cornwall are determined to reverse this situation and to address these issues before the end of this Parliament. Will the Prime Minister agree to meet us so we get the full backing of government and deliver first rather than second homes for the good of Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly?
Prime Minister.
I thank you for raising this. We are committed to building those 1.5 million homes, and that includes 4,500 new homes every year in Cornwall. But I do recognise the point he makes, which
See what I mean
is
about
that
the planted
excessive
questions?
concentrations
They
of
always sneak a few in there,
short-term
don't
lets
they?
and second homes in places like Cornwall can impact the availability and affordability of homes. That's why we'll enable councils to charge a premium on the council tax bills of second homes, abolish the furnished homes let regime, and introduce a registration scheme for short-term lets. But I am happy to make sure that he and his Cornish colleagues do get the meeting they want with the housing minister.
You want to see Frogface again?
George Benton Glenn.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is committed to using the criminal justice system to tackle violence against women and girls. But when an abuser can use a child custody battle to continue their abuse, as happened in the case of one of my constituents, it's clear that we need to raise the issue in the civil courts too. Will the Prime Minister please look at ending the absurd assumption that a domestic abuser's involvement in a child's life is advantageous to their welfare?
Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's right, Mr. Speaker. Family courts must never be a tool that domestic abusers can use to continue their appalling abuse, and that's why we're expanding the number of new Pathfinder courts to provide dedicated support to survivors and protect the welfare of children. We are reviewing the presumption of parental involvement, and we'll set out our position in due course. And I'll make sure that he meets the relevant minister to discuss this further.
Christine Jardine.
No, not that. It's got to be something gangs, you know, like grooming gangs or trafficking gangs, that sort of thing.
Happy New Year to everyone, but 2025 is already proving
still
a challenge
8-5.
for many of my constituents. Pensioners, families, small businesses, the hospitality industry, GPs, social care, as others have said. They know that the SNP has failed to deliver for Scotland. They hear when the Prime Minister says that the Conservatives left the economy in a mess, and they know that governments make difficult decisions. But what they are asking me is, when is this government going to do something positive for them to overcome the negative impacts they're facing from the budget?
Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Can I just address something I should have addressed to our leader, which is to express our condolences about Jenny Randerson. I apologise, I overlooked that earlier on. She raises the point about the failure of the SNP and the legacy of the Tories, and I'm proud that this Labour government delivered the largest budget settlement for Scotland since devolution, and that means, Mr. Speaker, in answer to a question,
double digits now, incredible.
in Scotland benefit from the
Incredible
increases
scenes.
from the national minimum and living wage each year.
10-5.
An estimated 3.2 million people in Scotland will benefit from the extension of the 5p cut in fuel duty, and it comes, of course, on top of the 125 million set up Great British Energy in Aberdeen. And it reinforces the point. They've got the powers, but a terrible record. They left a terrible legacy. We're getting on for delivering
And
for
another,
Scotland.
wow.
Last year, this Labour government delivered
Absolutely
justice for
running
members
away
of
with
the
it. It's
Mine Workers
11-5
Pension Scheme.
now.
45,000 members of the similar British Coal Staff Superannuation Scheme are keen to see their £2.3
Just very
billion
quickly
investment
on the
reserve
topic they were on
returned
about there. Sorry, I had to
boost
keep up with the
coalfield
scores.
communities like
Just
mine
pause
in
one
Cannock Chase.
quick moment. That would be a massive irony what Starmer was talking about there, setting up a national energy base in Aberdeen when Scotland pays the highest energy in Europe, despite having an abundance of access to renewables, as well as plentiful amounts of fossil fuel reserves, either way you take it. Yeah, just complete and utter irony or an insult, whichever way you want to take it.
Will the Prime Minister meet with retired miners, trustees and Coalfield MPs to discuss what could be done for BCSS members up and down the country?
Yes. Prime Minister.
Well, thank you for raising this issue. I was pleased, Mr Speaker, that the first increased payments to Mine Workers Scheme members were made at the end of November. I do understand the strong feeling on the British Coal Staff Superannuation Scheme, which is why the Minister for Industry met the trustees last year, and we will be working with the Coal Staff trustees to consider their proposals once the new Mine Workers Pension Scheme arrangements have been agreed.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, first of all, we had a Chancellor who embellished her CV. Then we had a Transport Secretary with a fraud conviction. And now we've got an anti-corruption minister who is being investigated for corruption.
Well, Gellert de Bill, I agree with you about the SNP come back. I think Labour are going to get absolutely wiped out in Scotland at the next general election. They'll realise their mistake for sort of lending their vote, if you want to put it that way, to Labour. It's soon become apparent that that was a mistake, and we're only 6 months in.
The Minister has acted appropriately by referring herself to the
question
independent
then,
advisor. We brought in our new ministerial code to allow ministers to ask to establish
that is the
PMQ's
question.
I'm not going to give a running commentary on that important exercise.
Tonia Antoniazzi.
Antonia Antoniazzi, that's some name.
The last couple of days, I wrote to the England and Wales Cricket Board regarding the upcoming game in the Championship Trophy against Afghanistan on the 26th of February.
Cricket isn't really my forte, I do have to say. I don't know what this is going to be about.
We are calling for the game to be boycotted. I thank everybody for the support that I've had across this House and also at the other place.
Yeah, Davini, I guess
like
smash the gangs would count.
Very much the Prime Minister for his intervention with the with the International Cricket Council yesterday. But would he please agree to meet and talk to his...
Clive, great to see you. Yeah, we've had absolutely massively high-scoring game today. 11 deliveries.
There's been an appalling erosion.
It's almost like doing cricket commentary, actually. That was 11 deliveries in the third over, and such has gone for a duck.
At least 50% of which are going to women and girls. DCMS are in touch with the international counterparts on this issue. I welcome the England and Wales Cricket Board making strong representations to the International Cricket Council on Afghanistan's women's cricket team.
The Afghan
Final questions to Roger Gale.
Women's cricket team.
Mr Speaker, setting aside the matter of grooming gangs, the opposition amendment on the order paper today sets out very
not sure if there's enough time for a full comeback.
Why the bill that we shall be debating is so very deeply flawed. And if it is to become an act of Parliament, it will have to be completely rewritten in committee.
11-6.
But, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister from that dispatch box has made much of his service as the public prosecutor. So could he tell the House in that capacity why during his time he declined to instigate a prosecution for rape and sexual abuse against Mohammed Fayed?
Prime Minister.
That case never crossed my desk.
Oh, it all went quiet there. And that's it. It's all over. It's all over. What a stunning match that was. Yeah, we thought we'd found... Well, we had, up to a certain point, quite a worthy adversary. But Postman Swat running away. An 11-6 winner on today's sensational PMQs, the first of 2025. Well, that gets it off with a bang. Quality streaming. He triumphs again. Still the undisputed champion. Even a black hole can't beat the strength, the force of Postman Swats. The Twats always win. It's like an Exeter City under-18s match, but with worse players. Apologies to anyone listening in Exeter. I don't know, they might agree. Who knows? Yeah, and obviously these gangs took up a large bulk of the conversation, as expected, as predicted. So how's about that? Let me know what you think in the comments or in the chats if you're watching back on a replay. Just a quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, make sure you hit thumbs up on the stream. Give us a boost on the algorithm. Give us a share across your social media as well. And check out some of the recent content on the channel. Been pretty active, been pretty busy lately. Yeah, but plenty to come on the stream, a few stories and stuff to get through. Please do stick around. So that's that for another week. Now let's just wipe the scoreboard clear. We'll be back next Wednesday for another PMQs on the Brews at 10 here on My Left Eye. I'm your host Lefty. For anyone who's just joining us, this is a channel all about politics and the world from a socialist perspective. And you're all very welcome tonight. Solidarity, everyone. And that's a good question, actually, from Legella. Were you on the under-18 Exeter team, Andy? And I do believe we've had a raid from Kevin Logan. The wonderful Kevin Logan. Thanks a lot for that, Kev. If you're just joining us over from Kevin Logan's channel, very warm welcome to you here on My Left Eye. We just finished PMQs, but we've got a few more stories to catch up with, so please do stick around. Thanks for joining us. Solidarity to Kevin Logan. I highly recommend, in fact I insist, anyone who's not subscribed and follows his channel, please do so immediately. He often joins Helena at No Justice in discussion, simultaneous streaming. So yeah, welcome raiders. The next story queued up. I think we'll have a quick look at the updates from what's happening in Los Angeles. And I'll take the opportunity to do a quick plug as well. Please check out the video released earlier today on that subject, and also how it links to Donald Trump's territorial aspirations, as it were. So this situation in LA, let's bring up the screen, is becoming increasingly dire, unfortunately. Climate change really pisses me off, I do have to be honest, pardon the French, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, but it is a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. It's something that affects us all, of course, no matter what your class, what your creed, where you're from. Climate change doesn't care, it's coming for you anyway. Which just adds to the insanity of the tactics of the rich. And where Trump's concerned, in the video, I do mention, well, it's all based around the macro tactics, the sort of long-term goals that Trump has with these territorial acquisitions. So in Canada's case, that is essentially where he, after he's trashed his own country, this could happen in the coming decades, not just, I'm not speculating this will happen during Trump's tenure, but this is what he's getting set up for. But with the mass migration that's going to come with climate change, he's going to want to move large amounts of US population into Canada, which he wants as the 51st state. And where Greenland's concerned, there's an abundance of fossil fuels waiting there as the ice melts, so please check out the video. I go into that in a bit more detail there. Let's see. This looks awful though. The firefighters are running out of water, it says, as the death toll has climbed to 5. Los Angeles Sheriff's Office has confirmed another 3 people have been killed. And that's in Eaton, which broke out last night. There's been thousands of injuries as well. There's been thousands of properties, homes, other buildings just absolutely razed to the ground. Terrible. So let's skim over some of the recent details. This lady says all that remains of her home is a wall. The street looks like a war zone. Susan Corwin, whose home is in Los Angeles, her home's burnt down. She's been living there for 29 years. Everything we know is gone. Our city is decimated, she says. But people are struggling to get out because of the backlog. The absolute rush to try and get out of there. That's some of the attempts to stem the fires. There are 5 separate fires altogether. This is awful. But what's happened is it's transformed from a wildfire season in the summer to an all year round thing, and this is going to happen obviously as global temperatures go up, droughts increase. And when you look at how quickly they're increasing at an exponential rate, it's truly terrifying. It's truly terrifying if we don't nip it in the bud, which we've failed to do in previous decades. So it says hoses have run dry. Los Angeles Fire Department Captain Eric Scott says 3 separate 1 million gallon tanks had been filled. So that's 3 million gallons of water they've thrown at this thing already. They've exhausted those supplies. Some fire hydrants were located in high elevation areas where the fire was growing. Scott says that elevation impacted how fast the water could move through the system. The extreme demand caused a slower refill rate for the tanks, which created a challenge for our firefighting effort. The consumption of water was faster than we can provide, he explained, but more water is being sent to the area. There's been air support sent. I can't see Biden jumping out of his seat to do too much. He just wants to get it all over with. But you look at the size and scale of these. 32,500 people evacuated from the homes, and it covers more than 10,000 acres now, the fire. 10,000 acres, 4 times the size it was just a few hours ago. Actually, it says there 11,800 acres. So there's Eaton, Hurst, Woodley, Palisades, is that how you pronounce the other one? Apologies. In those areas all around Beverly Hills. Well, I dare say that some of the occupants of Beverly Hills might find themselves in private jets and whatnot recently, but now look, it's all coming back to bite them in the arse. I don't like to laugh at other people's misfortune, it's just perhaps some form of karma. But it's not just the rich who are being caught up in all of this, of course, it's ordinary people. Population of about 80,000 up there. And it's the most destructive fire in Pacific Palisades in history. I'll keep you up to speed with this. That's just a bit more of the media that's been coming through. Look at that. And did you see the thumbnail on the video that I posted earlier? It's incredible. Talking about intense heat, thousands of degrees. Look at those burnt out washers and dryers. Boy. And this is only going to happen more intensely, more frequently. We know the way it goes, people. Palisades. Thanks for the correction on the pronunciation there. Okay, I'll move on. What we've got next? Yeah, so speaking of all of that, like I said, whether it's for resources or to move people into, that's what Trump's all about at the moment. That announcement he made yesterday, but Germany and France have sort of put the foot down a bit. They've said 9 or none, respectively. Let's see what's happening. There is the old orangutan. 78 now. He would actually succeed Biden's record of eldest if he makes it through a full term. Anyway, they've warned him against threatening Greenland after he refused to rule out military force to seize Denmark's autonomous territory. Olaf Scholz said, "The principle of inviolability of borders applies to every country, no matter whether it's a very small one or a very powerful one." And French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said, "There is obviously no question that the European Union would let other nations of the world attack its sovereign borders." Panama told him to do one as well. Just going to shrink the screen slightly. Bit of overlap going on there. There we go. Yeah, Greenland's Prime Minister is pushing for independence from Denmark, but he too has made it clear the territory is not for sale. Where Canada's concerned, yesterday outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there wasn't a snowball in hell's chance that Canada was going to become the 51st state. They will not pass. Back to Greenland. If you're asking me whether I think the United States will invade Greenland, my answer is no. Have we entered into an era that sees the return of survival of the fittest? Then the answer is yes. Is that perhaps a reference to climate change? They interviewed some citizens from Greenland. Let's have a quick listen to what they've got to say. Hopefully there won't be any buffering. Fingers crossed, people.
I would stress that the vast majority of Greenlanders, they say, well, we are not for sale, and we are not even willing to consider becoming American citizens or becoming a part of the U.S. They still have a cultural, political, and spiritual bond with Denmark. So that's not a debate at all. But there's definitely a minority, and we saw that yesterday when Donald Trump Jr. visited here in Nuuk. There is a minority who think that it could be fascinating and maybe also strengthen
fascinating.
The
I don't know.
defense of Greenland
Fascinating.
if the U.S. played a bigger role than they do today.
Similar to the video about Trump's statement where I made the point, I used the clip from Independence Day saying that when he called them exciting, people are dying, so exciting is not exactly a word that I choose to use. A minority would be interested just to see what happens. They'll soon regret that decision, I'll tell you. hypothetically anyway, it doesn't look like it's got much chance of getting off the ground. And all Trump said about it is economic security. There you can see the map for those of you who aren't familiar. Massive swathe of land is Greenland. But that's where a lot of the ice is going to be melting, revealing the fossil fuels that lay beneath, as I said, owned by Denmark, which they say is one of the happiest places in the world to live. Where they do, of course, have democratic socialism. Just quickly back to the map actually, so you can see, you know, tactically this would give them access or easier access to Russia militarily as well. Greenland MP Kuno Fanker told the Beeb that the population had been preparing for some bold statements from Trump, but that the island's self-determination are non-negotiable. Well, yeah, that's right. There he is. God, look at that monstrosity. That was when Trump Jr. visited what he called a personal day trip. I just happened to be passing and stopped by, and then Dad all of a sudden said, well, let's try and get the country, even if we're prepared to use military force to do so. Yeah, it's just a coincidence, isn't it? I have yet to meet a person in Greenland who is dreaming of the island becoming a colony for another outside power like the USA. Personal day trip, yeah, right. My ass. So that's just the latest on that. Yes, he's been very naughty, Davinia. Well, they've said no, so it looks like his only option is going to be military force. We'll see how that goes down with the European Union, the United Nations, so on and so forth, if he does go through with it. I've got that clip of the Benjamin Netanyahu protest I mentioned earlier, just quickly before that, speaking of rightoids. This is a breaking story from today. There's a far-right group called Blood and Honour, and they've had their assets frozen by the government. Let's see what's happening there. Bit of a blurry picture. So they're linked to parts of the skinhead music scene, it says, and they've become the first extreme right group to have financial sanctions imposed by the UK government. I guess that is, you know, the far right trying to disguise themselves as punks. Play it again, Sam. Thank you. Treasury ministers said they had reasonable grounds to suspect Blood and Honour of being involved in terrorist activities through promoting and encouraging terrorism, seeking to recruit people for that purpose, and making funds available for the purposes of its terrorist activities. The assets freeze, which was extended to all aliases and affiliate groups, including Combat 18 and 28 Radio, means that nobody in the UK can provide funding or financial services to those named organisations. They were founded in 1987 by Ian Stewart Donaldson, aka Ian Stewart. He was the lead singer for skinhead rock band Screwdriver, Screw with a K. He set them up, and it takes its name from a slogan of the Hitler Youth, because he felt the National Front was not racist enough. Jesus. Combat 18 originally served as security and ended up controlling one of its factions, and 28 Radio was an online radio station. He said, "I'll die to keep this country pure God. Even if it means bloodshed at the end of the day, then let it be. They never know what they're talking about, do they? They'll probably say pure Anglo-Saxon without realising that went out the window 800 years ago. In fact, longer ago, 1,000 years ago nearly. The Normans, I'm referring to the Normans. Anyway, over the last decade, 6 extreme right-wing groups have been banned or prescribed by the Home Office. The first one was National Action. The list also includes Atomwaffen Division, Führerkrieg Division, Sonnenkrieg Division, the Base, and the Telegram Collective. Some names they've got there. Well, good effing riddance. And, yeah. Someone please do the same for Elon Musk and Nigel Farage while you're at it. Yes, Flow Steak mentioned C18. We're just talking about this asset freeze and far-right groups. While you were smoking a fag. Not heard that one for a while. Aligela Deville, you got told because you're mixed race that you'd have to go to Brazil. Yeah, those old festivals that the far right used to host. And these days it's all Stephen Yaxley Lennon and the like. So that's just the latest on that. Let me know what you think about that in the chat, people. Quick word on the Middle East now. This protest I mentioned. It's just a quick clip, but this guy's not messing around, I'll tell you. It takes place at a wax museum where there's a representation of Benjamin Netanyahu, and at the start of the clip he already appears to be covered in orange paint or something similar, though this isn't a Just Stop Oil protest. I do have to be very clear about that. But then what he proceeds to do, well, you'll see for yourself. Here we go. Wrong button. Right, this is it. Oh, it kept sticking there for a sec.
Viva Palestina, viva Sudán, viva Yemen, viva Puerto Rico. Viva Palestina, viva Sudán, viva Yemen, viva Puerto Rico. Viva Palestina, viva Sudán, viva Yemen, viva Puerto Rico.
Yeah, good job there. I was just trying to pick up the accent. I think it's a Spanish accent. Puerto Rico. Just one final time. wide of them. Yeah, that's definitely King Charles. Who is that on the left? There's some boxer through the doorway you can see in the other room. Can't make that out. Shout out to Breakthrough News as well, by the way, for this clip.
Viva Palestina, viva Sudán, viva Yemen, viva Puerto Rico.
At the end, you can see... Skip it to the end. The late Queen Elizabeth II, there, just sitting and smiling on as the representation of Netanyahu's lying destroyed on the floor. And is that Prince Philip on the right as we look? I think it might be. Well done, that man. Nobody got hurt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Spanish. It wasn't Italian in the Viva thing as well. Obviously, that's in French as well, but the accent really does ring true. Puerto Rico. So I'm not sure if a group has taken responsibility for that protest or if it's just an individual's protest with no affiliation whatsoever. I'll try and look into that. Yeah, vive is live or long live in this case. Yeah. Was it Paul Burrell? That was the guy who used to be the butler, wasn't he? He used to be the butler. He's the one who he said in that interview, or it was a documentary, that King Charles has someone who wears in new shoes for him. It was also the one who broke the thing about Prince Andrew with the teddy bears on his bed having to be in a certain order and that sort of thing. What was the other one? Oh yeah, he said that somebody puts a portion of toothpaste on then Prince Charles's toothpaste for him. Probably still does. Now he's the king. And one of the other ones, one of the more ridiculous ones, was that something fell off of Charles's desk into a waste paper basket next to the desk, and he rang someone to come across from the other side of the palace, like another wing. He's saying on the phone, you know, this thing's fallen into the basket, can someone come and get it out? It was empty, there's nothing else in there. One piece of paper had fallen in, but it's far too beneath him to reach into a waste paper basket and just pick it out himself. There were quite a few others in there, but yeah, I won't go on. Solidari-Tea kits, yeah, we'll be seeing you soon. Thanks for joining us tonight. I will actually be bringing the stream to a close shortly. Before I do though, of course, I want to give another shout out to the members on the channel. As always, your support massively appreciated. Just remove the chat so we can see everyone's names. Oops. Thank you very much for your continued support, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, members of the Super Brew crew. Do stick around. Could have a redirect coming up. Thanks again to Kevin Logan for the raid earlier. There's nothing live, but there is an all shorts coming up, so you'll be redirected into that at the end of the stream. Please do hang around, and then you can add it to your watch list or whatever. Great stuff again from All Shorts. Do give him a follow. What's this about eggs in the chat? Have I missed something? Oh, the eggs! Yeah, the eggs with the Prince Charles thing. The egg. Yeah, someone was throwing eggs at him, weren't they? And he didn't like. He's so used to the high life, it just sort of just didn't faze him whatsoever. And the the thing with the toothbrush there as well, like you're saying, Clive. Andy, thank you so much for the gifted membership as well. RC Pilot, welcome back to membership. Hope you enjoy the perks if you're listening. I'm not sure if you're on live, but I know that they're a fan of the channel and share us around social media quite often as well. So thanks as well for that, RC Pilot. Alright people, that's about it from me. As I said, you'll be getting redirected into All Shorts. Enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever you do. And until the next time I see you, take care. My Left Eye, be seeing you soon. Good night.